This is every defensive player the Pittsburgh Steelers had met with at the NFL Combine. So, the NFL Combine is officially over, and if you did not see my video yesterday, I covered every offensive player the Steelers have met with over there, so go ahead and check it out if you want to see it. But now, this is every defensive player the Steelers have met with at the Combine. So, the NFL created a rule a couple years back where teams are allowed now to hold a formal interview meetings with only 45 players. They reduced it from 60, but they also lengthened the time of the interview. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, usually these meetings hold great value in terms of the prospects that they're grading and someone who they may draft in the future, or at least are interested in. So before I get to the list of players, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you never miss out on updates like this, and also like the video. Now, let's get into the list of defensive players the Steelers have met with at the Combine. So I'm going to start off on the defensive line. And before I get into the list, let me just say this. I don't know every single player, so if I get their name wrong, that's my bad. But let's get into the list. Starting off on the defense line, like I said, they met with McKinley Jackson of Texas A&M. If I don't say it was an informal interview, which means it's not like a regular interview over dinner or something like that, just assume it is a formal interview, meaning that it was over dinner. So I just say who they met with and the team, it was a formal interview. If I say informal, that means it was informal. So McKinley Jackson of Texas A&M was a formal interview. Rook Orhoro from Clemson. Byron Murphy II from Texas. Darius Robinson from Missouri, that was an informal interview. Eric Watts from UConn, it was an informal interview. Jordan Jefferson from LSU was informal. Gabe Hall from Baylor, informal interview. Tyler Davis from Clemson, it was an informal interview. Logan Lee from Ohio, it was a defensive meeting with defense lines coach Carl Dunbar. That was a formal interview, kind of. Justin Eboji from Alabama, informal. Now, those were all the defensive line people that they met with in terms of interior defensive line. Just to kind of count it up to see how many players they met with that was on the defense line, it was a total of 10 players, meaning they met with 10 players on the defense line. Now, moving over to the edge, the players they met with there. They met with Austin Booker from Kansas. They met with Muhammad Kamara from Colorado State. It's kind of unclear if it was a formal or informal interview, but I'm pretty sure it was a formal. Javen Solomon from Troy. It was an informal interview. They met with Cedric Johnson from Ole Miss. It was an informal interview. Miles Cole from Texas Tech. It was unclear if it was a formal or informal interview. Braden McGregor from Michigan, informal. Jalen Harrell from Michigan, informal. Marshawn Keeneland from Western Michigan, informal interview. Jalix Hunt from Houston, informal. So those are all the edge rushers the Pittsburgh Steelers met with at the NFL Combine. And once again, just to count it up to see how many players they met with there, it was a total of 10 edge rushers. Now, moving over to the linebacker position. They met with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. from Clemson. They also met with Junior Colson from Michigan. Tommy Eichenberg from Ohio State. Edrin Cooper from Texas A&M. J.D. Bertrand from Notre Dame. It was an informal interview. Darius Massa from UCLA, informal interview. Nathaniel Watson from Mississippi State, informal interview. So in total, they met with 7 linebackers. Moving over to the cornerback position, the Steelers met with Cooper DeJean from Ohio State. They met with Taron Arnold from Alabama. Kamari Lassiter from Georgia. Mike Sainastrill from Michigan. Nate Wiggins from Clemson. Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama. Daquan Hardy from Penn State. MJ Devonshire from Pittsburgh, informal interview. They also met with at the safety position. They met with Tyler Nubin from Minnesota, Kalen Bullock from UCSC, Tyreek Smith from Georgia, informal interview, Dominic Hampton from Washington, informal interview. James Williams from Miami, informal. Javon Bullard from Georgia, informal. And Siom Vaki from Utah, informal. So in total, at the cornerback position, they met with 8 players. But at the safety position, they met with 7 players. Anyway, this is the end of the list. I'm sure I butchered a lot of names, like I said I was going to, because I don't know all these players. I'm just saying their names. But this is the entire list of defensive players that Pittsburgh Steelers have met with at the NFL Combine, formal and informal interviews. Now, let me just recap all the positions on the defense the Steelers have met with in terms of what it means. So, usually with the Steelers, you look at who they interview and the type of players that they interview, and you could tell if they're trying to look at a position to be a top tier, like first round, second round pick type of players. So you look at the defensive line and you look at the players that they met with there, and you could tell it is a type of priority for them to maybe draft a defensive lineman, because they did meet with 10 players on the defense line, and that's a lot. But you look at the type of players that they met with, it's not the top tier prospects. So you could tell that they're maybe looking at the later rounds or middle rounds of the draft to get a defensive lineman. If they're looking at the top name prospects, then maybe you could say it would be like a first round, second round draft pick. But in terms of the prospects that they're looking at, you could tell that maybe it's the middle rounds or later rounds of the draft. And it's not like it's a big need for them on the defense line. Obviously, Cameron Heyward is getting older, but you do have Keanu Benton there. You have Larry Ogunjobi. You have other defense linemen who are still on the team, like DeMarvin Leal and others. So you don't need that position entirely, but obviously they are looking for it, because you can never get too many good defense linemen or at least prospects on there. So moving over to edge rusher, once again, just like defense line, it doesn't seem like a big priority. They did meet with a lot of edge rushers though. I was surprised about that, but it's not the top tier prospects like I said. And you could tell maybe the later rounds or even the middle rounds, they may be looking edge, but it's not a big need for them. And I don't even think it's a big need in terms of players that they have either, because they do have 4 really good edge rushers and people who produced last season in TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Herbig, and even Golden. So the Steelers don't need that for edge rusher, but they are looking at it for the later rounds, it does seem like. Now, moving over to the linebacker position, you see it, and they are looking at some top tier prospects, but then others are the middle rounds either. And they kind of do need a linebacker position, because even Omar Khan said that they are probably going to address that position because of how depleted they are in terms of injuries. So my kind of initial thought here is they will be looking at the linebacker position, and maybe even highly in the draft, maybe the 3rd round, who knows. But the linebacker position, based off Omar Khan's interviews, he basically says the Steelers do need to address that position. If they don't address it in free agency, expect them to address it in the draft. Now, moving over to the cornerback position, and this is where you could tell the Steelers will be picking a cornerback very, very early in this year's NFL draft, because they met with basically a lot of the top tier prospects. They met with Cooper DeJean and someone who is expected to be highly drafted in this year's draft. Maybe in the 1st round, maybe even before the Steelers even pick on the board. They also met with Kool-Aid, someone who is expected to go very early, and someone even projected to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers at pick number 20 on many people's mock draft. So they met with a lot of top tier cornerbacks, and that's a big need for the Steelers. This is a position that I always say the Steelers need to address, because they've been lacking for so many years. They finally addressed it and got someone in Joey Porter Jr., someone who seems to be a lockdown cornerback, but they still need another guy opposite to him on the opposite side of the field. They can't go into the season with Levi Wallace, Patrick Peterson. They need to address the position. Yes, they still have Corey Trice, but you don't know what he could do. He got injured first year, missed the whole year, but he will be coming back, so hopefully he could be the person we all want him to be, but you still have to address the position just in case he isn't. And it looks like they're going to do that based off who they're interviewing, as they are looking at all the top tier prospects. And this is a position I personally would draft in the 1st round. I would draft it over center. I would draft it over offensive tackle. I just like knowing that we have cornerbacks because our defensive backs over the years, they've let up so many big plays. And it felt good knowing whenever Joey Porter Jr. was targeted, he did not let up a big play. And I want that to be the case on the opposite side as well. So I think cornerback is a bigger need than center and offense tackle. And you could easily find veterans in free agency if you really want to address those positions, or even the second round, look at center if you really wanted to with Zach Fraser. But cornerback, it is a big need, and it looks like they are going to be looking at that. Looking at the safety position now, you could tell that they're maybe not focused on that position as much, but they still kind of need it. They don't need it as much as a cornerback because they could just move Patrick Peterson to safety if they really want to. They still have DeMonte KZ. Is he going to be on the team? Hopefully. Keanu Neal, he got injured last season. He missed a lot of time. Will he come back? Who knows? They obviously still have Minkah Fitzpatrick, so it's not like they need a safety. They do have veterans there, but later on in the draft, who knows if they draft a safety? They aren't too focused there in terms of the interviews. They did interview 8, but that doesn't seem like a high priority. Like cornerback, offensive line, defense line, in terms of interviews at those positions. But overall, looking at the Steelers' kind of meetings on the defense side of the ball, they are meeting with some top tier prospects and some they aren't. But cornerback, like I said once again, seems like a main priority, and I hope it is. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on these meetings the Pittsburgh Steelers have met with at NFL Draft, all the informal and formal interviews that they held. Do you think it means anything? Do you want them to draft a certain position on the defense? Do you want them to go defense number 1? In terms of picking cornerback in the first round, or do you think they should go a different position, and a different position is a bigger need? Also, is there people that you're surprised they didn't interview with, or are you surprised that they actually interviewed? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Down below, make sure you turn on notifications, ring that little bell down below so you never miss out whenever I give you updates like this. I cover everything Steelers. We're so close to free agency, so close to the draft. I'm covering everything you need to know. So stay tuned to this channel if you want all Pittsburgh Steelers news, rumors, reports, highlights, film breakdowns, everything like that. I'll see you guys all later. Till the next video, I'm out. Peace.